Hey guys, what's good in the hood? It is Gertrude. This is Gertrude TV, and welcome back to my channel. Here I like to talk about music, art. I do covers sometimes, what it's like to be an artist. This is just the artist space. You're an artist. This is the spot for you. So, anyways. So today I'm just going to be talking about rejection and what it's like to deal with that, my experiences with rejection, the different forms it comes in, and I hope that someone can stumble upon this video and we can complain about being rejected together. Because it's honestly just a natural part of life, but especially as an artist, we're in a very competitive field and you get a lot of no's before you get the magic yes. So I think I just wanted to make this video as just a platform and just a way to just have a space and an open forum and conversation and just about rejection and different forms it comes in. So if you haven't already seen, I just did a cover of In My Room by Frank Ocean, so you can find that in the iCard or in the description box down below, and you can also check out my music there as well. So just as a general disclaimer, when I'm referring to artists, I will just be when I use the term artist, in this video, I will just be using that as a general term to refer to like creatives, anyone who like makes things, who does things, and the specific experiences that I'm drawing from is my experiences as a musician. So yeah, I feel like I can't really get started with talking about this video and this topic without starting with networking, because that's where everything starts in the artist space, and if you want an opportunity, you have to meet someone. So that's where networking comes in. And so since this is the first step towards rejection, I find that you may even kill your opportunity before you even get it. And for me, this looks often like having awkward conversations with people. So awkward conversations just suck in general, especially when you're networking, because first impressions are everything. And if you don't make a good first impression, you might have just like killed your opportunity before you even got it. You know, I'll talk to someone and then I have an awkward conversation and I'm left thinking like, what do they think about me? And you're thinking about them and their reaction, and it sucks. And I think, at least for me, it always makes me feel super insecure and kind of like definitely makes me question my social skills, because social skills is hard. Having social skills is hard. Having good social skills is difficult, and just trying to interact with people is difficult. And also just reading the room, reading someone's energy and body language, sometimes you just might not be getting the fact that they just don't want to talk to you. I find, like, specifically for myself, that when I'm talking to someone, that I worry about coming off too strong with networking with people, because you also don't want to just go up to someone and be like, hi, I want to be on your song, like put me on your next track. Like that's kind of awkward, and you don't want to be that person. But also I just hate the idea of coming off too strong too, because like at the end of the day, if you're in an artist space, if you're at an artist event, everyone is looking to use each other. Everyone is trying to get something out of someone. So I often find that, like, for me, I believe that it's kind of disingenuous to talk to someone and really just like elongate the conversation and prolong the conversation and try to like act like you really want to be someone's friend, when in reality you want something. It's a business partnership at the end of the day that you're trying to form, and like a business connection. And so I find that like it's stupid. I think coming off too strong in a lot of ways is very stupid. I personally would appreciate someone being more straightforward and being like, hey, like I want to work on a track with you, follow me on Instagram, than someone just trying to beat around the bush. And that's just my personal thing, but I also do recognize as well that like it's also kind of rude to go up to someone and tell them that you just want to like work with them. Yeah, it kind of feels like you're, in a lot of ways, it's kind of like minimizing someone down to their talent and skill, and that just kind of sucks. I've also just been in situations as well where I'm not reading the room correctly and you catch someone at a bad time when they weren't looking to talk. And that leads me kind of like to my next segue in this kind of awkward conversations topic, is definitely like sometimes you go network and You go somewhere to network, you go somewhere to be someone, and you don't even end up having a conversation to begin with. And that could be for a lot of reasons. Sometimes a lot of the places that I network specifically are shows, and because of that, as a musician, sometimes, specifically if I want to network with like the headliner or like one of the openers after a show, trying to catch someone to talk can be very, very, very difficult because they're surrounded by a lot of people. Sometimes they're tired, especially if they just perform. You never want to make someone uncomfortable. I never want to make someone uncomfortable, at least. And so I just find myself kind of just like in analysis paralysis, just like reading the room, also just kind of standing in the corner and waiting for like the right opportunity to pounce. And yeah, and it's kind of difficult because you get rejected in a way. It does feel like rejection when you're not able to leave a place kind of getting what you needed out of it and not being able to make a certain connection with someone. Yeah, that sucks because it just kind of like your opportunity kind of slipped out through your fingers. Connecting it back to rejection, when you're networking with people, one thing that being rejected so many times has led me, I love that there's a garbage truck right now. Okay, we're gonna wait. Okay, so one thing that being socially rejected in artist spaces has taught me is independence. When you're starting out and when you want to start collaborating with people and you just want to meet other artists and connect with them on art, it can be difficult because you really want to meet people, you really want to be able to make stuff with people, but at the same time, if those opportunities aren't presenting themselves, I have found that whenever I'm not able to connect with people, it has brought me back to myself, and it has brought me back to independence, and it has brought me back to creating those opportunities for myself. So often when I wanted to work with like a band or something and like wanted to do a show with them and I wasn't able to get in contact with them, or they weren't interested in wanting to work with me, I just did my own show. I found bands that were wanting to play with me and I reached out to other bands, you know what I mean? And if you, just because you weren't able to make that connection doesn't really mean anything. And if you can't find that opportunity in someone else, make that opportunity for yourself. Be the opportunity that you want to find in them. And I think that that has been one thing that has really helped me with dealing with people, especially when you feel like you need them. And I also think that you don't need people inherently. You don't need anyone to be able to do what you want to do. It's all on yourself. And even though sometimes as an artist may feel like, oh man, if I just knew this one person, if I just was able to if I was just able to meet this one person, then I would be able to get this done, and then I'd be able to get this record deal, and I would be able to get this opportunity, and XYZ, and just catastrophizing, when that's not necessarily true. There are millions of ways that you can get to where you want to be, and I think that if you're hitting dead ends with people, then just go back to yourself and fall back on yourself. And that's one thing that I've also just found just helpful. And other time, kind of going back to what I was saying about like not having conversations, it sucks because like you just felt like you missed out on an opportunity. Even when you had an awkward conversation with someone, you made a bad first impression and it just feels like that opportunity went out the window. But in reality, that's not necessarily true. Like, I truly believe in like infinite opportunities. I truly believe, even though our artist space is so competitive, especially in the entertainment industry, I truly believe that there is enough space for everyone. I think that there's room for everyone, and I also think that everyone, as people, as artists, we all have such unique goals, very specific and unique goals that I find when I meet, even though you might have similar goals as someone who stands next to you, I find that like even when I meet everyone, like everyone has a really specific and unique goal, and I just think that like because of that, that's why like we can have so many artists, because everyone has their own niche and ability to do whatever they want. And so other times with networking, I also find that you're just in a bad space. Like there's just bad vibes all around, and that sucks too, because it's just kind of like maybe the people aren't very nice, people aren't really willing to talk to each other. I find that sometimes when I go to venues where it's kind of where a show or a concert has been put together by people who are primarily of the same friend group, not many people are willing to talk to themselves, like to talk amongst everyone and amongst themselves, because everyone kind of already knows each other and everyone's from the same friend group. So often, like, you're just kind of left awkwardly standing there, and it's just very obvious that no one wants to be around you. But it's kind of dumb, because it's just like, why would you throw an art event if you're not trying to meet people, if you don't want people to show up, if you don't want people to talk, if you don't want people to meet with each other? I've always thought the phenomenon was really weird. Especially when I was younger too, like I would find that artists, musicians, bands, singers, songwriters just didn't want to talk to me just because I was a minor and they were an adult at the time, which kind of sucks too, because like I totally understand too, like just not wanting to have inappropriate interactions with minors, but professionally speaking, I think it's super unfair to young artists, young, especially young women. Yeah, it's unfair, and I feel like they're not able to kind of get their foot in the door and to be able to get the knowledge that they need to have. And so to my young artists out there who are trying to make a name for themselves and to just to be and exist in the same space that all these other adult artists are existing in, go ahead, shoot your shot and fail as many times as you need to. And as a young artist, you're already 10 steps ahead of a lot of people who are older than you. And I think that's something that I want to kind of reiterate. And I also think definitely goes back to independence and what I was saying earlier about how dealing with social rejection, with networking and all of that has just brought me back closer to myself. And especially for young artists, if you're finding a hard time, then try to network and talk to artists that are your age. And if you can't find people that are, you know, that align with your goals, that's fine. Keep trying. I truly believe you'll eventually find someone that will want to work with you, and yeah, it's just all a matter of like trial and error. But kind of going back to like bad vibes in a space, it's weird because like I also think too, if no one's talking to you, if the vibes are bad in a space, I also think that's just a sign that there was never an opportunity for you there to begin with. Maybe you were just there to like have some fun and like not you know, network or meet anyone. And I think that if you're not able to connect with people in any space, then I think that that's just a clear sign that there's not an opportunity for you there. And I've had a lot of these kind of like bad vibe experiences that I'm talking about in predominantly white arts. My camera just stopped filming. That was very weird. Yeah, it just stopped filming. But I noticed that I had these issues in a lot of predominantly white spaces, and people just not being very obvious, and that people really have no intention on getting to know you. And I think there's a lot to be said about privilege in art spaces, and I honestly refuse to make this video without addressing that. So I think when you enter these spaces, you can, at least for me, when I enter these spaces, specifically venues, concerts, like I was kind of referring to, a lot of the time I'm the only person of color in the room. And when you are in like predominantly white spaces, I think as a Black woman, I find that I may not even be able to connect with someone or get my foot in the door in certain social circles just because of the way I look. And I think that occurs too because minorities, especially like racial minorities, find hard to get specific like opportunities for them because people don't really see value in that often. And I think also like if I'm specifically drawing from like racial stereotypes and stuff, maybe someone sees me as a Black woman, as a Black artist, and think maybe from a white lens and might think, oh, I have no value in working with this person, like there's nothing that this person can add for me. And there's a lot of solidarity within, white solidarity exists, you know, and when you look like someone, you're more likely to want to help them, to give them opportunities, to give them resources. And I think yeah, you know, some people might just not think that you're valuable or that you have any credibility or really anything to say. Prejudice sucks because it's out of my control. It's out of any minority's control, and it sucks. And you know, with white solidarity comes resources and connections, and I think that kind of allows for like a more like gatekeepy behavior. When you're white and you're in your kind of white space with your white friends, it's easy to project racial prejudices on people, and subconsciously too. And I also think that's like that's just valuable thing to just talk about. As it relates to privilege, I think adults have a lot of privilege. aside from racial stuff, I think adults have a lot of privilege in art spaces. That's something that, as an adult myself, like I can tend to overlook. And I think back to like my 15-year-old self when I was at a show trying to talk to like other musicians and trying to get their information and just trying to network and make friends who were also artists. I really struggled because sometimes people just don't want anything to do with kids. Like sometimes someone doesn't want to be friends with the kid. Like I understand, as someone who's now an adult, I understand like you might not just want to be friends with kids. Sometimes you just don't want to work with the kid. Like that's totally fine. So adults have privileges, not only talking about racial ones. I think men also have a lot of privilege in art spaces. Men are, especially if I'm speaking towards bands and more musicians, I feel like men do have a huge advantage in the fact that they're able to, people will take them more seriously. I feel like men just tend to naturally have, in the eyes of society, just more credibility, and people are willing to take a man more seriously than they are to take a woman. Yeah, and not to mention like LGBT people as well, and also especially non-cis identifying people and people who are trans, and like maybe people who are transitioning and people who are not passing and stuff like that. Like that, there's also kind of like people who are cis also have a huge privilege in art spaces with that as well. And sometimes the way that you look can literally just crush your opportunity, not even your personality, nothing. That is off a real and authentic basis. So yeah, and I guess to finish this topic, I kind of find that like people, and when I'm in venues sometimes at shows, people just like stare at me, which I also think is kind of interesting, like and I also like will sometimes have conversations with people as well relating this kind of back to privilege and art, where like I'll wonder why a conversation went a certain way, or why someone was disinterested despite me being very like friendly or warm, or just I felt like I was connecting with them and that we had things in common. But it just turns out that probably they didn't want to work with me because I'm black, or probably they didn't want to work with me because I was a kid, or probably they didn't want to work with me because they just didn't feel like I had anything of value that to bring to them, and that to bring to the table, and that's shit. Like that sucks. I guess what I have to say about rejection as it relates to privilege and art, and just having certain privileges and maybe not having certain privileges, is that I think that's completely out of my hands. I wish I would have more to say about like a solution or something to provide, or just anything that I could talk about with my relations with dealing with it. It honestly does get me down a lot sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, like where I sometimes leave space thinking like, would I have been able to like connect with that person? Would I have been able to make that opportunity? Would I have been able to get that gig? Would I have been able to get that job if it wasn't for my skin tone, or if it wasn't for the fact that I'm a woman, or if it wasn't the fact that I'm a young woman too, even though like I'm still an adult, like even the fact that like I'm 19, and even like my age too like holds me back in a lot of sense, or maybe people not thinking that I have enough experience. Whatever it is, I think it really gets me down, and I just wanted to bring this up in this video, even if I don't have a necessary solution or just anything to really say about that as it relates to being rejected, because I just feel like it's an important thing to address. As it relates to, people not wanting to hang out with you, whatever, because of the way you look, I also think that just generally leads to like disinterest. Sometimes when you're networking with someone, people are just generally disinterested, like they don't like you, or they just genuinely just don't want to work with you. And I get really frustrated because I find myself often like dancing around in situations with people where, say I am able to get past the networking stage, I'm able to make a connection with someone, and I decide to take a project on with someone, I find myself, my time being wasted as a result of people, an artist not being upfront and communicative about them just being disinterested and not having any passion, or just not really caring about the project anymore, or just not being honest in general about not liking something. And I think that sucks. And I think it sucks. You feel rejected. It makes you wonder, like, am I even good enough as an artist? And like sometimes people just don't like you. Sometimes people just don't want to work with you. If you are able to yeah, work with people. Sometimes you'll work with someone and they're too afraid to say no, or they're not being upfront or honest with what they want, and they're generally disinterested, or you might have been taken on as like a pity project. Like, you never know. So I think that can be difficult. And I think with dealing with kind of like disinterested people, I think there's nothing that you can do about that, just in the sense that, like, you know, it's just life in general. Sometimes people don't like you, and that's just like something that you have to do with it. Like, some people just don't like what you have to do. Like, they're not aligned with your sound, your vision doesn't align with theirs, and I feel like there's very little that you can do with that. But also, like, what I can say with that and rejection is just kind of let bygones be bygones, and maybe there was not an opportunity for you there to begin with. And I think it kind of sucks too, especially when you really like when you really are interested in someone's work and you really love what they do and what someone does, and it's just they just have want nothing to do with you, and that's fine. Like, you can still admire that person. I can still admire that person, but you know, just you move on. Yeah. And so, say that you're able to get past everything. Say that you got past the awkward conversation, networking went absolutely perfect, you were in a vibe, in an art space that was great, the people were great, you've met people, you've networked, and now you have someone that wants to collaborate, and you guys are gonna work on a project together. Another way that rejection shows up for me is sometimes you're not on the same schedule. Sometimes you guys have completely different schedules and goals. Sometimes you work with an artist and you're like, I want to get this song out in 2 weeks, and they're like, well, I want to get it out in 6 months. And I think that can be very, like, it can be difficult to deal with, kind of like managing other people's schedules, and that can be kind of conflicting, and you can kind of feel feelings of rejection, and just like could definitely come up from there, because you're just kind of like, especially if you want to work on something, you want to get something out, you want people to see it, you want an audience, you're just excited to have something done. I think it can definitely feel, you take it, I've taken it personally in the past, and just and just felt like no one would really ever want to work with me, just because like my song didn't come out like on this specific day that like that I wanted to come out, and like everyone's gonna forget about it. It's not true. And I guess another way that you can get rejected is dealing with collaboration, is dealing with dishonest people that just don't communicate well or properly. Like, sometimes you're trying to start a band, say you want to start a band, and people are just not being honest about like what their goals are. Some people don't want to be in the band, some people don't like the music, some people don't like what we're making, and people are disinterested. And it's like, when a lot of the time when you have a lot of people, or when you're working with a lot of people who have different goals, it's very hard to kind of get your goals to align, and often like a project may not even take off the ground just because of that. Maybe you work towards it, and then, you know, artists, your fellow artists, your peers, their hearts are not into it anymore. And that's also can be difficult as well. And I think my take on that, and what I've done to manage and deal with all of that, is honestly goes back to what I was saying earlier about independence, and has brought me back closer to myself, and brought me back to my art form and what makes me happy, and like brought me back to doing what I wanted to do at the end of the day. And like, you can still do, oh, my little doggo, he has a cone head, he's in the back, but yeah, it brought me back to myself, it brought me back to my own independence, it challenged myself to figure out ways to do the things that I wanted to do without the help of other artists, to be more independent, and I think that's absolutely amazing. So yeah, and I guess to segue into the last topic relating to rejection is a skill level. Now, this is kind of like, I feel like skill level is kind of like one of the most painful ways and forms of rejection, because like that is all on you. Like, there's nothing you can do about you sucking. There's nothing you can do about yourself being bad, but practice, like, that is on you completely. And it's kind of like, it humbles yourself for sure. Humbles me for getting, you know, and it makes you kind of go back and reevaluate what your skill levels are, what your goals and everything. Like, your skill level can hold you back from getting to where you want to be. My skill level has definitely held me back into being into a lot of the spaces I want to be. Like, for example, I'm not the best at producing, and I do produce my own covers, but I for my own personal music and releases, I personally feel like I am not at the skill level that I would want my personal music to be released at, my personal original music to be released at. So because of that, I've often like had to outsource like different producers and stuff, and it does suck like when your skill level is just like not there. And that's kind of the reason why you know, you got rejected, save for like an audition. Yeah, an audition, you didn't get the part because you sucked. And that, I mean, as much as that, as not being good enough at your art form or whatever you're trying to do sucks, at least you know that you can fix that. At least I know that I can fix that. And you might get replaced, you might get fired, and I often like was overly ambitious and kind of a little bit more than what I could chew as an artist, and kind of assuming that I had a certain skill level when I didn't. And like sometimes you just get fired or you just get replaced. And I've been in a band before, you know, where I was the only guitarist and I just was not like carrying. There was only one guitarist, that was me. I was not carrying my part. Yeah, I wasn't used to playing that style of guitar. I wasn't really that familiar with the chords that I was given, so I was just stumbling, I was fucking up, wasn't doing my best. I wasn't practicing enough either, so that also like definitely like played into the fact that I was just making rehearsal a lot more like unproductive. And like, at least when you're in those situations, as much as they hurt and they take a hit to your ego, at least you can do something. At least I can do something about it. At least you can do, at least we can do something about it. Yeah, at least we can do something about it. And that's how I feel on that. And yeah, I guess my final thoughts with rejection and managing it and dealing with it as an artist, and just like what happens and how you get rejected, is one thing that my theater teacher said back when I was in high school about rejection was, she was saying like, if you miss an audition, doesn't go well, you don't get the part, or the audition just went bad, like get your tub of ice cream, go home, watch Netflix, cry, bitch, moan, figure it out. It'll be fine. And let it out. And I truly think that just expressing your hatred, anger, rejection really gets it out. It really gets it out, at least for me. And I am really happy that I was honestly able to talk about this. It was really cathartic and definitely brought me down memory lane to like some things that I've dealt with. And I really hope, like, the main thing that I really want people to get out of this, that like, if you find yourself being rejected in certain areas, or just being rejected in general, like as an artist, just to try to think of ways that you can make the situation better. Focus on what you can control and figure out how you can advance as an artist independently, with your own skills, with your own set, you know. And maybe just to be more independent, maybe to create those opportunities that you're looking for yourself. And yeah, so thank you so much for watching. I'm actually really happy. I'm really excited to edit this video. I'm really excited to see how it came out. I do not have an upload schedule, but I will be coming back with you guys soon with another cover, so I hope you guys are looking forward to that. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Bye.